Hello and welcome, coming to you pre-recorded from my bedroom. I'm here to talk to you about self-sabotage and how that relates to work-life balance. I believe that everybody struggles with their inner saboteurs at one point in time or another, and sometimes we can do so without being aware of it. We carry these saboteurs without knowing how they might be holding us back. For me, I'm dealing with overthinking, perfectionism, and procrastinating. And this pushes me to push myself past my boundaries or my personal limits at work in order to feel like a valuable member of my team. And that is something I believe we can change. We can achieve a professional standard that is inclusive for everybody. We are in an era of transition towards inclusivity, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. However, it hasn't been that way for all of us, and we still struggle with some tendencies and biases that tend to hold us back. This is something I believe we can change, especially when one entrepreneur looks inwards towards themselves and perpetuates those same values towards their community and anybody or any employees they pay forward to in the future. As an entrepreneur, it's my mission to do my part to move the meter towards inclusivity by sharing my values with you. I get in touch with my values by practicing my hand at creative outlets and studying the process to develop a sustainable and consistent approach that supports my needs as a creative entrepreneur. Please keep listening for today's topic and a short pitch at the end where I will tell you about my marketing business on social media, CoFellow. If you would like to share something with me, Anchor allows you to share a voice note, and I would love to include that in my next episode. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed today's topic. This is the first episode I've ever recorded this way. I have several podcast episodes out on Procrasturnation Station, and I was just thinking of trying something new. So here we are. I'm not here to memorize scripts, so I'm going to read this on my writing. But yes, I will be reading here and there. But yeah, I hope this is fun. We're going to try it out. Anyway, you can find the same version of this episode on my podcast, Procrasturnation Station, that's on Spotify and Apple Music. And yeah, go ahead, go check it out. Anyway, today we're talking about procrastination, which is funny that my podcast is called Procrasturbation Station, and I have yet to talk about procrastination, which is really the motivation behind the name. We're talking a lot about self-sabotage and entrepreneurship, and procrastinating happens. It's, for me, like my biggest red flag when something's not going right, like something is not aligned with me, or it's draining me, or maybe it's like being too demanding, or like just not my favorite thing. That ring light's gonna bother me, so I'm gonna have to find the best placement. But anyway, let's move this way a little bit. For me, when I'm working a job, if it is too demanding, or if it's too demanding, or if something's just not right for me, then I'll start to be late and I'll start to procrastinate, and my deliverables just don't end up getting done. So I try to catch that before it happens, because I have experienced that in the past, but I do my best to like be aware of it and like just talk about it before it becomes a serious problem, because I don't like letting people down. And especially when other people rely on you for your work, and you getting your stuff done allows them to get their stuff done. Falling short on your deliverables is messy. You don't want to do that. So in order to maintain relationships, I like to just be very honest and transparent and find somebody on the team that I might trust and pull them aside and just have a very honest conversation. But yeah, procrastinating, it happens in like day-to-day life as well too. Life happens. There's things that you're always going to have to do that you don't necessarily enjoy doing. And they're the first things that I forget to do when I'm in sort of like a messy little headspace. I don't really know how to describe it, but once in a while. Okay, anyway, let's follow the script. Let's see what the plan is, because there's lots of things in here that I can talk about. We are going to talk about what causes procrastination, what aggravates it, how to work with it, and how to avoid it, because we don't want to procrastinate. That's been covered already. We're going to discuss what it's like to be a person who says yes to everything, even to their own detriment, and what stacking deadlines does to your schedule, and how we can create urgency before deadlines do pile up, and seeking alignment. Like I was saying, finding jobs that don't ask too much of you, or if they are demanding, it's demanding in the right way where you enjoy doing the work and it's not a problem. This episode is for you if you are a procrastinator or if you're working with one. Hello, friends. So first, I'm going to start by talking about being a yes person. I am definitely a yes person. Everyone loves a yes person until the cookie crumbles and deadlines are missed and you have so many things on your plate that it's impossible to get it done. People rely on the yes person. People rely on you when somebody calls in sick and you're short-staffed, and you can always count on that person to say yes when you're in a pinch. That's when you come in such great handy, and why people keep you around. But when it's a difficult trait to handle on a team environment is when you're saying yes to so many things and you're not being open and honest about where your headspace is. Sometimes you can handle a whole bunch of things on your plate at once. Other times you feel like you're drowning, and it's just very important that before something happens, like missed deadlines or dropping the ball, that you communicate and you lean on the people around you and you seek help where you can, and also prioritize. Find things that can just kind of be put on the back burner and picked up later, or maybe just not at all done. Some things are delegated that are not necessarily important. That's just a fact. So maybe people in the moment might be very stressed out if you miss a deadline, but as long as you're prioritizing the major important things that need to get done, and also communicating, that's the most important part. If people are expecting, just manage expectations. Manage people's expectations so that you've already owned up to what's going to happen. If you are in a situation where you're procrastinating and things might not get done, just own it and make a plan with the people in your circle to avoid it in the future, and how to catch those warning signs before it becomes a problem. Here's the thing: when you say yes to everything, there's a high likelihood that 30% of what you commit to is not going to get done. And I am speaking from experience. This can be a good thing. Like I was saying earlier, sometimes people need a little nudge to realize that not everything that they throw your way is actually necessary to move the business forward. Sometimes things are just arbitrary, and it is important to be very discerning in these situations and to be respectful so that you can see the big picture and understand that there is a big picture, especially in an employment situation where you don't actually know why things are being delegated all the time. Sometimes your boss might have an idea, or the project manager might have an idea, and maybe you don't see where they're coming from, but they see where they're coming from, and they're the project manager. So that's what's important. And it is important to follow direction to the best of your ability. But I am speaking in a situation where like things are piling up, like deadlines are stacking and you're procrastinating things and you're sort of like drowning a little bit. This is how you keep up and get out of that procrastinating state. And sometimes that means putting things down that you didn't want to do. That's my best way to get back to a place of balance, is not doing the things that I don't want to do, not forcing myself, and then owning it and speaking about it. And maybe I have a reason, and maybe we can change the way things are done, because maybe my reasons are valid too. It's all a matter of conversation, and you have to be open to being wrong, but it's okay to speak to how you feel. This can be a good thing, because you can also help other people prioritize what actually needs to be done over silly little errands. Maybe there's a more efficient way to do things. That being said, though, more often than it being a good thing, you paint a picture of yourself that's unreliable, or it can be difficult to work with. I am a yes person, and that is okay. The trick to protecting yourself from dropping the ball is to practice saying no once a day. Practice telling people before it becomes a problem, and practice speaking to your truth when you are feeling it. Like if you are being delegated a task and you don't fully understand why you're being delegated that task or why it's important, feel free to ask, and also feel free to be open to hearing, it's none of your business at that time. At this time, can you just do it? It's all in the context of the situation. And this is really, really hard to practice. It is, but you can start small. Like even saying no to your own self-doubt. I can't say no to people. I can't let people down. Tell yourself no and be like, no, I can. I'm just going to need to practice, and I'm going to need to push myself a little bit and find the right situations to do so. Because it's okay to say yes to people. It's okay to be reliable. It's okay to save people when they're in a pinch. But it is not okay to put yourself on the back burner and to burn out and to build relationships on a foundation of resentment because you are not owning your truth, and because you are not being very candid about the situation, about your experience of the situation. I hope this is making sense. Also, I'm loving this Zoom quality, MacBook quality camera. It's a vibe. It's giving me 2005 Skype calls. I'm also hoping the recording worked. This will be funny if it doesn't, but I'm sure I'm recording on my podcast, so this is why we have two. Because I'm lazy with making content. I'm going to reuse as much content as I can. And this platform has been actually good so far. Just chiming in how things are going. Because I've been able to do more like riffing on my script rather than just following the script. I find sometimes on my podcast, I have to like actionably pull away and be like, okay, what else can I say about this topic that's coming to me in the moment, and like how to make there be more flow. And having the camera actually helps me like look up from the page. So that's hopefully going to be a good thing. We're going to see. Yes. Moving on. Next topic is deadlines. Now I'm wondering, do you ever procrastinate harder when someone adds pressure to the deadline? I have two examples for you. When I'm working on a project, my client might reach out to see where I'm at with my progress, and they might add another element to my deliverables. Let's say it's an event, and they've underestimated the turnout and we need to source more food. I might be so occupied figuring out how to accommodate more people that I forget to call a food supplier, which would solve my accommodation problem. That's an example of procrastinating a deadline. And it happens like not cognitively. You're almost not even aware that that's a new deadline. You're more so just worried about what the action steps are. That happens to me from time to time. I hope I'm not alone in that. I am very good at decision making in crisis situations. I'm awesome at dealing with like event planning and like putting out those fires that you were not expecting. I'm good at handling that stuff. But I am not great at making the adjustments leading up to things without having like a sounding board to make an action plan. I need that action plan. Even if I'm coming up with it on my own, it just needs to be verbalized and it needs to be affirmed by somebody else on my team. And sometimes just like throwing the little fire at me before like I'm in this urgent situation where I can make those fast decisions can sometimes throw me off my game. And instead I sit there just like, duh, and I'm like, I have no idea what to say or what to do. And then that's really when like leaning on people is so important. Another example of procrastinating a deadline due to pressure is when you know you'll fall short on your commitment, but you procrastinate telling your client due to being a yes person who doesn't want to disappoint. Like last week, I gave my client only 4 days notice for my wisdom teeth surgery because I was avoiding thinking about it. And I didn't want to drop the ball and I didn't want to disappoint them. But that being said, the ball was already dropped when I double booked myself. And my anxiety brain was taking over in the moment. I was intending not to double book myself, but I didn't realize that one of my projects was ending a week later. And I just like, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Time was not real for me in that moment. And the difference in this situation, even if you do screw up and you double book yourself, the difference is to give your client enough time to make other arrangements. That's how you can maintain your reliable status, is by being open and honest and very upfront and forthcoming with new information. And I'm under the impression that you should give all of the information and let them decide what's important and what's not important, rather than holding back what you think is unimportant or not valid. And let them help you learn how to discern the right information to tell them. It's all about listening and it's all about being forthcoming and transparent and allowing your client the freedom to help you adjust or to mentor you or to really help you align yourself with your values and allowing them to sort of mirror those values back to you. Of maybe you don't want to be a person who misses deadlines, or you don't want to be a person who's late. So by seeing your client being frustrated with you, it really can push you to do better at that. I used to be late all of the time, and I really, really work hard now on leaving early and giving myself enough space to get gas and to do my things, because I've seen how it affects people, and people really do feel disrespected when you show up half an hour late and, you know, you didn't make it a priority to wake up on time that day. And, you know, it is never intentional on my part, but it does affect people regardless of what my intention is to do. And I want to make people feel comfortable and I want to respect their time. And, you know, if we have an allotted, agreed upon time, I want to honor that. So I work on being on time, and it's difficult, and it's still something that I screw up on. I sleep in sometimes, and for me, that's when I really start to notice, like, okay, I'm being spread thin because I'm not waking up on time. I enjoy waking up on time. So if I'm not, then it's a problem, and there's usually something deeper going on. Deadlines are helping. Deadlines are helpful for moving your project along, but what happens when the pressure to maintain face becomes more important than curating an experience you can be proud of. So sometimes you have to let people down in order to move forward in other areas of your life, or even in other areas of the project. This is where it's important to speak your truth. Sometimes you're delegated things that you would be better elsewhere to be delegated to. That wasn't really clear, but I hope you understand what I mean. It's important for you to curate a working experience for yourself and for your clients or for your employer that you can be proud of and that you're comfortable with and that your employer can be proud of and they're happy with. It's important to align yourself with your boss, and it's important to not do jobs that drain you, because when you're drained, you become a version of yourself that you probably are not proud of. You can start to be late, and you can start to disobey rules, and you can start to feel like everything is arbitrary, and you can get this level of apathy in the workplace where you just don't care. And there's very few people who want to hire or work alongside somebody who doesn't care. It's so important to care about the work that you're doing. And I do believe that our working environment over the next decades are shifting towards more of an environment of collaborative energies where the employer is not a superior to the employee, more of like a contracting style where the employee has their own set of standards that they want to work in, and the employer does work towards achieving those, and there's compromises and there's ability to seek accommodation where it's needed. And I don't believe that you should have to go to work if you're not well. If you're sick or if you're even mentally unwell, you should be able to call somebody, and there should be enough hands that you can do so, and they're not struggling, and they can have a action plan in place to deal with that if they do have short hands that day. It's not cool to get in trouble or to feel like you're dropping the ball because you have a migraine, or because something happened out of the blue, or because your anxiety brain dropped the fact that you were having a wisdom teeth surgery. I understand why she was frustrated. That's not what I'm saying, but you know, these things happen, and you should be in a position where you can make mistakes and you don't feel like you're going to lose your job because you made a mistake, and that your employers know for a fact you are not perfect. And they're willing to help you grow in the areas that you can grow, and they're willing to accept the areas where you may need accommodation, or you may bend the rules a little bit. And that should be okay. It should be a lot more human of an approach to business. That's a tangent after talking about deadlines and how it helps people stay on track and on the same page. But, I jumped to my next point. This is why scripts are tricky. Deadlines help groups of people stay on the same page. It also helps individuals track their progress. I use deadlines very, very loosely. I have a calendar. I have several calendars. I actually have, I think, 3 or 4 different calendars, and they could all be active at the same time. And I'll use them to just sort of keep track of different things. I'll have something to keep track of my moods and just like how I'm doing if I'm really trying to make progress on more of like a personal development side of things. I have a business calendar. I have my personal life calendar. And generally, I actually like to not use a calendar at all. I like to have myself scheduled to a point where there's enough things that are not too urgent on my plate that they can be shifted around. And I create these deadlines to create urgency for myself. We'll talk about that more later. But they're not a hard and fast rule. They are arbitrary. I can shift them if I'd like, but that doesn't mean things don't get done. I still need to honor that deadline once, maybe twice after shifting it. It can't be shifted more or else I, again, need to ask myself about alignment. And I do my best to not overschedule myself. And this is why sometimes having multiple is nice for me, to be able to kind of see things all laid out in their own kind of fashion, to see like what is specifically taking up all of my time. But that being said, generally, I don't even really use it. It's more so when I'm trying to get into a habit, or I'm building something new, and like I just need to sort of frame it out and not lose track of all of my other responsibilities. But in different times of my life, it has been very, very helpful for me to keep on top of a calendar and keep on top of really honoring those deadlines. The most important time that deadlines come in handy is when you're working on a team or a group and other people are relying on your work. And in order for them to get their work done, your work needs to be done first. And you have that deadline to sort of pass the baton so that they can plan their life around your work. And this is where it's so important to honor those deadlines. You cannot flub when it's somebody else relying on you. That's where people get frustrated. That's where you lose your job. So it's important to honor those deadlines. Deadlines are just made up dates that we use to figure out how far along we should be. That's it. Should be. Not how far along we are, not how far along we will be, how far along we should be. Should is probably the most evil word in the English language. Should is neither real nor fake. It's just it's an expectation where we should be. But that expectation does nothing for the situation, for the reality that we are in. Should be eliminated from your vocabulary in every frame of life. Should is not helpful to anybody. So in that case is when deadlines are arbitrary. Where should we be? Where are we? How can we move ourselves forward from this place that we are? If we're not going fast enough, how can we make this more efficient? How can we double down? How can we divide and conquer? Rather than comparing to what we should be. The difference is one is actionable that moves you forward. The other one is punitive and looking to hammer home that expectation. When you are more concerned with producing quality, deadlines become arbitrary. Please be kind and be patient with yourself when you miss a deadline. That's specifically to anybody out here who is in a creative field. When you have a lack of that creative flow, it can be so painful to create. It's impossible even. You have to be in a place where you can be in flow and where you can access that creative energy in order to create. So sometimes it means taking a short hiatus before you can then carry forward. And creatives, I like to work with other creatives because they get it. Sometimes you need a pause and to slow down before you can speed up. Please be kind to yourself. My advice to you is to develop your discernment around what's important versus what's urgent. A coworker of mine in the past taught me that, and everything feels important, but things that are urgently pressing take priority. And truthfully, I'm not 100% sure if this person knows this, and I hope that they do. Sometimes the most urgent matter is rest. Sometimes rest is most pressing, and you need to stop and slow down so that you can speed up. You can't always go, 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 go and expect that your tank will never run empty. It will run empty, I promise you. take some rest. It is probably most urgent if you are asking the question. Next page. And that's a very good segue into our next topic, urgency. I sometimes procrastinate to add urgency to my goals. Sometimes a deadline does not cut it to add urgency. I need that added level of procrastination to make it so that there's less time for me to get this done, and it's urgent, and it's coming up, it's important. And this is where reminding myself that it's arbitrary comes in handy, because sometimes I can drive myself up the wall to get something done when there's nobody expecting me to have it done but myself. But if I pick a deadline and I commit to honoring it, I still might not start the task until exactly as much time as I've anticipated it will take. Most of the time, my clients don't notice. They have none the wiser the difference. However, the problem here is when something unexpected happens, on time becomes late. How we can add urgency to a deadline? Oh, I misphrased. How can we add urgency to a deadline without procrastinating? This may be a genuine question because I have yet to actually figure out a tangible way to actively, consistently not procrastinate. It's just something that I have learned how to work with, really. And I challenge you to think about that. And if you are a procrastinator, I'm sure if you're this far in this episode, you are a procrastinator. Think about that. How can you create urgency around a project without procrastinating? Commit yourself to being on time and on task. One thing. You can focus on one thing. I'm like 90% sure I have ADHD. I don't have a diagnosis, but a lot of what I'm saying, I'm like, wow, the internet, they validated a lot of this as ADHD. Anyway. Commit yourself to being on time and on task. Don't get sidetracked with the other things that feel important, the other things that just kind of like fly at you and you could impulsively get carried away with for a full day. Be on task and commit yourself to a certain amount of time that this task will take up your brain space. And break this larger task into chunks and create shorter deadlines with breaks in between to celebrate your progress. And in those breaks is when you can get carried away with other things like hobbies or just like random things to get fixated on, like maybe your sock drawer really needs to be organized. You can organize your sock drawer, but make it on a break space and not on a actively doing things space. Also celebrate. If you're making progress, celebrate. It's important to give yourself treats and to pat yourself on the back so that you can continue to make progress and trust that you will continue to reap those rewards. And it can be super helpful to agree with an accountability buddy that you will be on task and on time and share your progress often. And they don't even have to be doing the same thing. You can share progress in your mutual respective projects and not have to have the same interest necessarily. It could help, maybe, but it's all about finding the right person who you trust to be open with if you're dropping the ball and who can speak to you in the right way to help you get back on track. I've had a number of accountability partners in the past, and they've all served a purpose for a time, and I've really enjoyed having somebody sort of help me walk through a specific goal or a specific journey. That being said, I have found that personally, I do like some level of independence, but I also like to have somebody that I can info dump all of the details of what I've just accomplished or what I've put together after it's done. I'm usually not very forthcoming as I'm doing things, and afterwards I will let them know how I feel or how it went. And I'll go through the facts of like, this was the itinerary, what they were missing out on, and then I will seek their feedback on if I happen to do this again, how I could improve, or maybe what my weak spots were on. But accountability buddies are usually, for me, somebody consistent. Once I find a good one, I keep that good one for everything, whether I'm like trying to quit a bad habit or trying to stay on track with a new habit. Accountability buddies are super duper helpful. I also write my to-do lists in a circle to help me identify what is most urgent. And it can be super easy in a vertical to-do list format to assume that the topmost thing is topmost important, but that's not always the case. So when you write your to-do list in a circle, you then kind of have to go around the whole thing to ask yourself what is the most important. And it also helps me track my progress in fractions rather than in did I get this whole list done or did I not, or counting. It's rather to say I got 3/4 of the way done and then I ran out of steam and I have somewhere to pick up tomorrow, and it's not that big of a deal, rather than getting only halfway through your list and sort of just like seeing all the bullet points and counting them like minus a point for me, minus a point for me, like you're grading some weird test. You're not. You're just moving your life forward. It's not that serious. My next topic here is on self-reflection. Seek alignment from your schedule. What are you procrastinating? Are you trying to tell yourself that something is not aligned with what you really want? Are you trying to tell yourself that there's a better way to do something and that it takes too long and it's just not a reasonable expectation of yourself? Ask yourself these questions. It's important to develop an internal dialogue, especially as a procrastinator. As anybody, everybody has an internal dialogue. I think. Maybe they don't, but I definitely do. And when you have that internal dialogue, it's important to train it to work in your favor and to not work against you. And without my inner dialogue, I always feel like I'm forgetting something. Without my inner dialogue, I always feel like I'm forgetting something, and I lack the organization to either identify what it is or to let it go. I will fixate on that idea that I'm forgetting something until that is either remembered or I'm insane. And I notice that I'm unhappy with my work when I start rushing, being late, and procrastinating. When this starts happening, I have to get very real with myself and to ask why. What is going on that is causing me to procrastinate? I do not want or enjoy being a procrastinator. I reject that. Am I angry about something? Did something else trigger me and I'm projecting unfairly? Am I being challenged enough? Is there hope to getting this back on track to a place where I can be comfortable and on time and can put my deliverables at last? Most importantly is to notice these signs and to not act in haste and to seek support when it's needed. Even if it's just leaning on a friend, even if that's your grandma, even if that's your mom, just talk to somebody about how you're feeling. Seek support. Seek work that offers you the right kind of support, be it to vent, to take action, or to coach. And that brings me to my conclusion. The best kind of work offers you the opportunity for support in ways that serve you. If you're late to work all week and your supervisor finds out, if you're late to work all week and your supervisor finds out that you're experiencing a breakup, now is a good time for them to coach you that you will survive. If you're rushing and anxious and might be If you're rushing and anxious, now might be a good time to vent to your supervisor about your deliverables and how they can help you get on track to not being overextended. Maybe they can shift some deadlines, or maybe they can delegate to somebody else some certain aspects of your deliverables, but it's their job to help you. My wish for you is to seek work that is a joy to say yes to and won't over ask from you. As often as this doesn't happen, I hope that you develop your inner dialogue to catch your warning signs of being overextended and to honor those warning signs and to act on those warning signs. If you are starting to be late and procrastinate, maybe it's time to quit. I'm telling you. Now is your permission if you were looking for it. And lastly, I hope you have a to-do circle that you can prioritize and commit to. Be proud of you. I know I am. Thank you for listening, and I hope this video works out. We're gonna see. Cheers. Thank you so much for listening, and if you enjoyed today's topic, please remember to subscribe. You can also find me on TikTok under Procrasturbation Station and Instagram under CoFellow. I'll link them all below. As promised, I will give you a short pitch about my business on Instagram, CoFellow. It's my mission to create impact around our professional standards towards inclusivity and sustainability. To me, that looks like social and environmental impact and sustainability in creative spaces. I work with service-based and product-based businesses in creative spaces. If you're an entrepreneur and you identify as a creative, this is my love letter to you. I work with artists, musicians, coaches, makers, e-commerce stores. The list is endless. With my services, when I'm working one-on-one with clients, I create content storyboards to help creators pace their information to effectively communicate with their audiences. With my templates, I help creatives develop more structure in their marketing. I believe consumers want to see the impact of their purchase, be it towards somebody's story, their own transformation, or an experience where they can become the expert themselves in any given topic. Really, sky's the limit. I help businesses market the transformation and the impact they are offering their clients. It's my mission to play just as hard as I work. This is something I hope to pay forward to you by leading by example and sharing my stories. If this sounds interesting, go give me a like and a follow on all of my platforms. I'll link them below. And once again, thank you so much for your time. Cheers.